How about if I just start at the beginning? you could be honest.
Because you know what? They have the sweat equity that went into that memory that they're making with their friends and family. And that's what's important with us, and that's what the I Am Real World's about.
Well, that's a great question. One of the best things about a spring food plot is you get a second chance if it fails.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins, brought to you by buyafarm.com, your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. By tapping into Don's years of experience, dedication, and commitment, Chasing Giants focuses on the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails. Now, here is Don and co-host Terry Peer.
Welcome, everyone, to Chasing Giants, episode 89. We are on the cusp of the rut in 2021, Don. It's actually Halloween night tonight.
It is. November is just around the corner.
Yeah, we got a great episode planned for everyone tonight. Before we get started, I want to, number one, thank everybody, especially the listeners, just an overwhelming outreach to me, wishing me a happy birthday. I appreciate that yesterday. I spent the day out in the rain all day with my kids and couldn't have had a better time. Unfortunately, I do think I have a little bit of a cold, so if you hear me sniffling, I'm going to try to mute back and forth when I hear a cough or a sniffle coming, Don, but apologize in advance. I'm feeling a little crappy tonight, but we got a lot to talk about. But thank you to the Metzger family. I know our friends, the Metzgers, are listening. They listen every week, especially those little kids of them. They baked me cookies and mailed them to me, if you can believe that.
Oh, I can believe it. I've had some of those.
So thanks for all that. Let's dive right into what you're kicking off the Rut Report on social media. You announced that last week, and we have an unbelievable week of weather planned for much of the Midwest. So let's dive right into what you're doing and what you've seen and what's going on as you've been in the stand, Don.
Well, I started hunting mornings yesterday, and the 30th of October. We're going to talk about that in one of the questions towards the end, but the deer movement and the weather has just been fantastic. I'm always looking ahead when you start getting towards the end of October. Some years I don't start hunting mornings until like maybe the 3rd or 4th of November. But the last 2 years we've had cold spells at the end of October, the last couple days, and I've started the morning hunts earlier than I had in a number of years. And I'm seeing great movement in the mornings, probably better than the afternoons already, which is typically a trait that I see in November.
Right.
But I'm going to be hitting it hard every morning this week. Temperatures are going to be below normal. Highs most days are going to be in the 40s here in central Illinois. So I'll be hitting it hard.
Yeah, the plan for me is I got to do a couple things at work the first couple days of the week, and then I'm going to be up there for an extended period of time here, probably Tuesday through the following week. I think it's going to be phenomenal setting up for these temperatures and the winds that we're going to have, at least in the extended forecast, I'm prepared for with different setups. So I'm really excited about it. I'm sitting here looking at, the outline of the podcast tonight and Facebook on the other screen. I don't think Wes Delks is getting too much hunting done, man. He bought that new house, and it looks like they're remodeling it. And he's in the middle of that project. Holy cow.
Yeah, dream come true for him and Madison, and they took back home to Indiana and purchased a nice farm and new home over there. Did some remodeling on the home, but that's going to cut into his deer hunting for sure this fall.
Well, I can speak from experience. That type of putting family first will come back tenfold for him. So huge blessing for him and Madison. Want to say congratulations on that. Happy for him, but he looks pretty good swinging a hammer and knocking drywall out. I'll admit that. So, did you go? You went hunting. We both went hunting tonight. It's kind of crazy. We both had very little activity on the cell cameras this evening, and I only saw 3 does.
Yeah, and the only deer I seen was a 3-year-old 9-pointer, and he came by right at dark. I was actually had my pack all packed up, my video camera and binoculars and everything, and the pack was all zipped up, sitting there on the base of my stand. I was getting ready to lower my bow down. I heard something in the leaves, and I looked up, and here comes this buck walking by at 10 yards. So I just sit there and let him pass, and lowered my bow and sit there for another 10 minutes or so, and made sure he was clear, and then slipped out. But there was the movement wasn't near what it was on Saturday. Saturday, my cell phone was just buzzing all day long with those cell cameras, going off. So it slowed down a little bit, but I think the morning, well, definitely it was better this morning than it was this evening. And we're into that phase of the season where morning hunts are where it's at.
Yep. Well, and congratulations to your son-in-law, Corey Hamilton. Looks like he shot a good 8-pointer on your place yesterday.
Yeah, he shot it yesterday evening. We recovered it this morning, and it's quite a long story. I'll spare all the details, but the buck was still alive this morning, and he had to put a stalk on him and slip another arrow into him, but got it done. So Corey's Illinois archery tag is full.
Well, if there was any buddies that I had, and I do consider Corey a buddy of mine now, we've got to know him. I've got to know him pretty well, and I know you're very fortunate to have such 2 good son-in-laws. But if I could ever pick one buddy that could be a ninja, I think Corey would be probably on the top of the list. I mean, he climbs electric poles and does utility service for a living, and I would guess he could handle himself on a stalk.
Yeah, he did a good job. He shot the buck in his bed, and the buck gets up and didn't know what was going on, and runs just a couple yards and stops and starts looking around, and he almost got a 3rd arrow in it before it took off. So,
well, congratulations, Corey. We're glad it worked out for you. Don, you posted a picture of that on your Higgins Outdoors page. Nice 8-point buck. So happy for Corey. Getting it done and finding the buck today. So glad you all got that done. Let's talk a little bit about the Rut Report contest that you're doing this. I think the post, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, the post is going to be both on Instagram and Facebook, but the contest is going to be only on Facebook only just because it's easier to manage.
Well, I changed that.
Okay.
There were some people that complained that they were on Instagram only and not Facebook, and I tried to make it fair. So I'm going to use both. So, I've got a little cup with 2 pieces of paper in it. One says Facebook, one says Instagram. So each day I'm going to pull one of those out, and that's the account I'm going to pick the winner. And then I'm going to draw another number, and I'm going to count down. If I draw 10, I'm going to count down to the 10th post from the top. And that's the winner. So, there was hundreds of posts on the first day. So, it took me a while to get set up to do that. But I want to thank everybody that did enter the contest and liked the Rut Report. We had a little issue today. There was somebody that created another Higgins Outdoors Facebook page. They stole my photo. They stole my Rut Report picture, and then they went to my page and they posted and told everybody that they were a winner.
Nice.
And what they did was they even used my name, but they didn't leave a space between Don and Higgins.
Oh.
So it was just one word. And also on my page, there's a slash between Don Higgins / Higgins Outdoors. They left the slash out. It looks very similar. They used my same profile picture and everything. Then they go to my page and they tell everybody they were a winner. But to collect your prize, you had to click on this link. But when you go to the link, they wanted you to enter a credit card.
Oh.
And, it was a scam. It was probably a bunch of Joe Biden voters with nothing to do. So they trying to scam a working person, out of a free prize or something.
Oh,
but anyway, I contacted Facebook, as did several of my friends, and we got the page. I thought we had it shut down, but now there is still that same page, but they've taken my picture off, and now there's a bunch of foreigners playing soccer. We're in a soccer team.
Nice. That's not suspicious at all, because we would totally be promoting foreign people playing soccer, of all things.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of evil in the world.
I guess so. It's amazing when you look at we have to plan and protect, and basically every move we make as business people, as farmers, as employees, it's to reduce the amount of risk associated to stuff, just because there's people out there with nothing better to do than cheat and scam and steal. So it's unfortunate the way the world's come to.
Yep.
Well, we talk a little bit about what's getting ready to happen. We're going to circle back. We got some great questions for tonight. I think we're going to probably dive into a little bit more hunting specific stuff. But before we move on, what else do you want to talk about here in the opening segment?
Well, I want to talk about what a great month of October my consulting clients had.
That's right.
There were 3 of them killed bucks over 200 inches. Another one killed a 196, and then a 192 was killed, and a lot of people killed the best buck of their life. Several other booners. So this was the best month that my consulting clients ever had, and
well,
I'm just
there's something that just doesn't make sense, Don.
okay.
If the stuff that you're talking about that you implement on your farms and how you hunt and you do for your other people, if it was just as easy as cheating, like some of our former friends in life said it was, then good grief, then you wouldn't be able to have the success you had, or neither would your clients.
Well,
I give you time to rephrase it.
Go off on a tangent.
It's all right.
Here.
It's okay. That's why I stopped you. I wanted to make sure people hear this, because this isn't about just defending us. This is about defending the right way of doing stuff, and just people being jealous and can't handle it. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is.
Basically, if it was as simple as turning loose pinned deer, do you think all these clients that hire me and are killing these big deer, I'm just going to their house and I'm saying, hey, all you got to do is go buy you some pinned deer and turn them loose on your farm, and boom. And then now they're all doing it? Oh, come on.
It comes back down to what I said earlier. The whole premise of this podcast isn't defend Don Higgins or Terry Peer. The premise of this podcast is to help people understand how bucks that are 5.5 years or older are acting differently than other deer, and you have to hunt them differently and spark ideas on what people can do on their own farm against, just hunting like normal and trying to be the luck of the draw. There's so much garbage information out there. All we're trying to do with this podcast is let people think differently about how to hunt these animals who are different also. So it just fires me up a little bit. I'll just leave it at that. Excuse me. But I think it's phenomenal that not only can you sit back at night knowing that you help people chase the bucks of their dreams, but that you're putting other people first. You've donated 2 hunts on your farm this year to raise money for different missions and charities. I have no doubt the reason you have been blessed is because of hard work and putting other people first. And if people can't handle that, then they're the ones that have to live with it.
I better stop while I'm behind.
That's all right. So I think that's a good segue into let's talk a little bit about Lester's feet. And can we do that for a little bit?
Yeah, that's a better topic. Let's move on.
So let's talk a little bit about that. If you're watching, we started a new thing this week. We're going to occasionally be posting basically a prayer list. The list of families has grown so much that we have a lot of families in different places that are connected to this podcast. The foundation and the board of directors is staying true to our original goal and bylaws, saying that 100% of this money is going to families that, have sick kids, and it's an honor to be put in connection with these families from our podcast listeners. So what I mean by that is we're not walking into social workers at hospitals and saying, whose families do you need help? All of these families are connected somehow, some way to the listeners of this podcast. And I just think that's so awesome that we can get on this podcast like we did last week and say, hey, if anybody knows how to get us in touch with the Amish family in Pennsylvania, a lot of this money was raised by Amish people. We would love to help out. That literally, we were flooded with people who wanted to help. Put us in connection. We have reached out to that family and left a message with them if they need help to obviously, call us. We know that the Amish community really takes care of their own. It's one of the things I respect most about them, but at least they know that we're here and want to help. I do want to address one thing that Dawn and I found out this week. Next year's raffle we said was going to be huge. Huge doesn't even come close to what we found out this week. And we're going to have a couple people on. We got to schedule the podcast. Hopefully Don and I this coming week will get some time to talk about when we're going to do the raffle and how we're going to lay it out this coming year in 2022. But folks, this is we were both speechless when we got the phone call this week. Just absolutely crazy.
Suffice it to say that the grand prize winner next year will not be picking a hunt on my farm or Terry's farm.
No, that's small potatoes.
The grand prize will be much bigger than that.
That's small potatoes to what is getting ready to happen, people, and it's just an honor to even be able to start talking and working with attorneys on how we're even going to navigate this. So it's absolutely huge. The one thing I do want to point out to everybody, Don and I have been getting a lot of requests for people wanting to donate hunts. And while we appreciate that and we think that we could raise a lot of money for that, the board has decided that we talked about it maybe, a while back on the board, and then Don and I talked about it. We just don't think it's a good idea to raffle off random hunts at different places because, it's something that Don and I can't control. There's liability associated with it. Back to the foundation, to the board of directors, and although it stinks, it's just a decision that we're going to have to make, that we're not going to raffle off hunting trips or hunts with people who donate them. I think at least for right now, the only hunts that will be donated on it will be something on Don or I's personal farms that we'll be with.
Yeah, it's a decision that wasn't easy to make, but it's just in the best interest of everyone that we do that. We do appreciate all those folks who have reached out and wanted to donate hunts, but if you could come up with something else, that would be greatly appreciated. We certainly appreciate your interest in helping out.
And it's to protect the person donating the hunt also. We don't know who wins these. We don't know who donates them. It's just too many variables. We're just going to stay away from that for the time being. So hope people understand. But again, I think it's the heart of people that's wanting to help. That's so fantastic. I got a call from a guy who drives a modified dirt car today, and he wants to put Lester's feet all over he's giving up sponsorship dollars, ad space on the side of his car, and wants to put Lester's feet on it. It's just so humbling how people are getting around it. And I could talk for days and days, but the bottom line is, if you follow the Lester's Feet page, or talk about or listen to the podcast, we'll continue to make updates. We're helping a ton of families, and that's the important thing. So the money's being used what it's intended to. So,
Yep.
Well, we got a little bit of time. Let's. What else do we got to, before we move on to the BioFarm segment? I think you got a. I want you to touch on the other donated hunt for the late season, and I think you're even giving away a Matthews bow as part of that donation, right?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last week. I just want to remind everyone, because this raffle is not going to go on too long. The drawing is going to be November 28th, and the drawing will be for a new Matthews bow and a late season hunt on my farm. My personal church has a ministry they do with a place called the Moultrie County Beacon, which is a series of 8 homes for disabled adults so they can live together in community. So the Beacon provides assistance to those folks for their basic needs and such. But there's a lot of other things besides their basic needs that they could really use. And my church, they throw a Christmas party for those folks every year. And for a lot of them, that's the only Christmas party that they'll have. They either don't have family, or some of these people have just been left there, actually, and the family doesn't come visit them or anything. And so my church has got this ministry, and I'm a very small part of it. It's actually the church secretary, Sharon Stewart, just has a heart of gold, and she's one of them people that's always looking to see how she can help others. She's kind of taking the ball and run with it for this charity every year at Christmas time. Always looking for a fundraiser, and so I donated the bow and the hunt this year, and selling raffle tickets for $20 a piece, or 6 for $100. If you want those, you can just mail a check to Solid Rock Chapel. The address for Solid Rock Chapel is P.O. Box 172 in Sullivan, Illinois. And the zip code is 61951. And we certainly appreciate your support. 100% of the proceeds is going to that ministry.
Did they get any checks already submitted since we talked about it last week?
Yeah, I think she said they sold in church today. I think she announced that they had sold 300 tickets.
Fantastic. So I'm sure that there's a check still in the mail coming right now. When do they need to have their checks in to be part of it?
Well, as long as they're there before November 28th.
All right, so you don't have
any
much.
checks that come in late, we'll just return them. But
Yep, don't have much time, so make sure you're getting those checks in. I'm going to repeat the address one more time for those who need a pencil. Grab it right now. It is Solid Rock Chapel, P.O. Box 172, Sullivan, Illinois, 61951. What did we tell people last week to put in the memo line?
Now you can just put bow raffle or
Bow
hunt
raffle. So make sure you earmark that check, or put instructions into that check when it goes to the church. That way the administrative folks at the church can navigate that and apply it where it needs to be. So I think that's pretty cool that you're donating that second hunt this year. So, well, we got just one more a couple minutes before the BioFarm segment. What else do we got to talk about?
Well, I want to throw something out that I thought was interesting. It doesn't have a thing to do with deer hunting, but it does have to do with this country, and that affects every one of us. And, I heard that on Wednesday, November 3rd, this Wednesday, that there is a group of professionals, I guess you would call them, that are not going to show up for work. It's policemen, firemen, electrical workers, electrical linemen, truckers. I forget. There's a list of people that are doing a shutdown. And it's all about the vaccine mandate. Companies are stepping up and firing employees who are not going to take the vaccine, and just goes against our freedom. If you want to take it, fine, but I don't care what you do. But when you start dictating to people, that becomes an issue. So, I got to thinking, Terry, there is probably no group more in a better position to turn this thing around than these electric companies, the electric linemen and whatever. If those people would just shut the power off and go home for 2 weeks and tell the power company they ain't coming back as long as that vaccine mandate's there, it wouldn't take long. It wouldn't take probably 48 hours. And this whole vaccine mandate thing would be gone. And, there's all kinds of groups out there with all kinds of ideas of what it's going to take to turn this country around. But those people who are part of the electrical union, which I'm not, and I'm not a union member, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but those people have the ability to make a pretty loud and profound statement if they all stick together.
Yeah, I don't know. This could go on we could talk a whole podcast right now, but everywhere you go right now, there's a shortage of workers. People don't want to work, and the people that do want to work are being forced into doing something they don't want to. And, it's just, I think it's scare tactics by the government. We're navigating it with our stuff at work too. I don't know. People just need to stand firm in what they believe. I guess that's all I can say. Just like on this podcast, we're not shy to stand up and say what we believe, even if it costs us listeners. If you believe in it enough that your heart's behind it, then stand up for it. So, with that, why don't we move on to the buyfarm.com property of the week?
Buyafarm.com is your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. Now, here is Don Higgins with this week's featured property.
All right, this week's featured property is an online land auction. The land is in Jackson County, Illinois. There's about 130 acres in 2 tracts. The first tract is right at 50 acres. 15 of that is presently being farmed, and there's a little over 17 in CRP. The rest would be wooded acreage. In tract number 2, just a hair over 80 acres, and 48 of that is tillable, presently being farmed. This online auction runs until Tuesday, November 9th at 8 p.m. Lots more information, aerial photos and such are on the buyfarm.com website. Again, it's in Jackson County, Illinois. Be more specific, it's on Marlboro Road near Ava, Illinois. If you have any interest, you can also call Agent Don Bailey, and Don's phone number is 61919-1031.
All right, repeat that phone number one more time for everybody.
618-919-1031.
All right, fantastic. Go to buyfarm.com and search that property and contact them for any of your interests or needs in agricultural or recreational properties. So we've been getting pushed a lot on the podcast from people who want to know how to partner with us. We've talked a little bit about the sponsor thing that we've been kind of stressing about a little bit, and we're just getting so many requests that, although it would be nice to help cover some of the costs and how we want to expand this service and platform for people, we just don't want to sell out and just use stuff that we've never used. So we have been sending out some of our 2022 programs, so we'll be making some announcements on that. But yeah, it's kind of odd that we get approached by so many people that are shocked when we say back to them that we're not willing to do it unless we've used their product before. It's kind of kind of an interesting spin for people to hear in this industry, I think.
And sometimes we're not willing when we have used their product.
Well, that's a different story altogether. I mean, I think people will understand that, but yeah, just, I don't think it's wrong to ask people to keep us in our prayers. We're trying to navigate this as honest and the best way we know how, to bring you guys the best platform and information possible. We appreciate the loyalty of people. And, it's just part of the growing pains of it. And we thank our sponsors that helped us get it here. And just be in prayer for us as we try to navigate that in the future. So with that, we need to apologize to everybody because last week's podcast cut short as far as what got aired. And what happened was the SD card that the podcast gets recorded to got corrupted. So as I went to upload it onto the service that pushes it out to all the podcast platforms, it didn't recognize it. So Sunday night late, I was scrambling. We were able to run a software on the SD card and recover most of it. I think we missed, Don, if I'm not mistaken, I think we missed about 4 minutes of the podcast, but it did cut off a question that I want to circle back on because a lot of people wanted to hear it, about putting a blind out in the middle of the field, if bucks noticed it, or how to brush it in, or how do you make sure that it's covered. So I know the question is a little bit out of context, but that was the gist of it. Do you mind just going back and circling back on that before we take the new questions for tonight?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the question, Terry. I think it was what the person described there. I don't even remember the person's name now. They described their situation, and they needed to move a blind out into the open, and they wanted to know if that would work with mature bucks. And my answer was, yeah, it can. However, when you have a blind out in the open, it's going to be a whole lot harder to enter and exit that blind without being detected.
Right.
And I think it's also going to be a whole lot more important that deer don't pick you off in that blind, because when they do, they're going to remember. Those individual deer for sure are going to remember, hey, I seen somebody climbing out of that blind or climbing into it or whatever, sticking his head out the window. And if you say you got a 2-year-old buck on your place and he catches on to what you're doing, you're never going to kill him once he's mature, and just becomes even harder to kill, just naturally anyway. But when you educate him, well, then it becomes almost impossible. So, one suggestion I threw out last week was plant some miscanthus around that blind. That miscanthus grows fast, and it'll grow as tall as your tower, and maybe as tall as your blind. You might have to reach out your window and prune it off to be able to shoot.
Right.
But that's a good way to create some cover in a hurry around your blind, is miscanthus. So,
yeah,
I hope that answers everything.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about after the question last week. So again, we wanted to apologize about the best part about it, or the worst part about that getting cut off, is you ended the episode with a big "Let's go Brandon" that nobody got to hear about. So hopefully you'll do that to end the podcast again today. But the big premise there is miscanthus will provide you that cover around it. You can use trees, but it just takes a little bit longer to get to there. So that's where we kind of ended that. So what's the questions you have for tonight? And hopefully we won't have technical difficulties by the end of the episode.
All right. The first one tonight comes from Mark Gingrich from Guys Mill, Pennsylvania. And Mark says, "Hey, Don, first of all, I really enjoy the podcast. Thank you for sharing your faith on it as well. I have a couple of questions. First of all, do you pay any attention to the moon, red moon or full moon? My second question is, on a full day sit, what do you do when you have to pee? Off the tree stand or in a bottle? A lot of my friends just pee off their stands and say it doesn't affect deer. I personally use a bottle and don't trust taking the chance. Curious what your thoughts are. Thank you, and God bless you and Terry." Well, Mark,
how much of the asparagus did you eat the night before? That's the first question. No, I'm just kidding.
Red moon, full moon, whatever moon. Well, I hunt during the day, so I don't pay much attention to the moon, really. No, seriously, When the moon guide first came out, and I guarantee I remember when the thing came out. It was probably the early '90s. Jeff Murray, a guy out of Minnesota, developed the whole red moon theory and idea and charts and all that. And when it first came out, I bought one of the very first charts that first year. And what I found was that I was using that chart to tell me when to go to the woods. And in the past, I just hunted every opportunity I got. And so if the chart was telling me it was a bad day, well, then I started looking for excuses not to go. And I was kind of almost trying to prove that the moon guide right instead of trying to just objectively see if it works or don't work. It was like I was almost trying to prove the thing right. And about halfway through the season, it was like, you know what? I'm all my movements, my actions. If the moon guide said, the deer are going to be on food, well, I hunted food. And if the deer are going to be in their beds, I needed to hunt beds. I hunted in the thick stuff. And I was using that guide to dictate me as a hunter without even knowing if the thing really worked. And I just threw the thing in the trash right in the middle of the season, and I never looked at it again. Now, do I think there's something to the moon? I absolutely do think there's something to the moon. I've said it on here before. The moon causes the ocean tides to rise and fall. My daughter worked as an emergency room nurse, for a time. And she would say, when there was a full moon, the crazies were out doing crazy things and getting hurt and ended up in the emergency room. And they had a lot more people in the emergency room when the moon was full. So I definitely think there's something to that. As far as the red moon, I'm not going to say one way or another. There may be. I may be totally missing out because I'm not paying any attention to it. But I do think, without a doubt, there's other factors. Moon maybe being one of them, but the moon is not at the top of the list of factors that affect deer movement. I think weather is way up there. The rut's way up there. And I don't look at the red moon chart, so I'm not picking on the red moon when I say this, but when a prediction, comes in or that, hey, you need to be hunting on November 7th. Well, guess what? You should be hunting on November 7th every year, no matter what the moon is, because more booners are killed on November 7th than any other day. So I just don't know about the chart, but I do think the moon has some effect. I just don't know how much. You want to comment on the moon, Terry, before I go on to the second question?
I hunt as much as I can when I can. And if the moon is right or wrong, I don't even know how the chart works, but I'm not basing when I'm hunting or how I'm hunting based off of it. They're probably, fish bite differently compared to the moon, so I know people get really into it, and that's fine. I think it's more important to hunt the right wind and be in the right spot when to get your chances the best versus worrying about the moon. I think people think that's the right moon. I'm going to go make a bad decision and hunt in the wrong spot with the wrong wind and put intrusion on my property. I think that's the bigger mistake. Kind of took the question a different way, but that's what I have.
I agree with what you said.
We're both talking about out of state hunting this week. You're talking about when to go to Illinois. I'm talking about when to come to Iowa, and I'm talking about when to come to Illinois. Both of us are watching weather, and we're not checking the moon. So that's just that's our style. If somebody thinks that there's a better tie, I don't have any data to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
second question. I know you're going to have a reply or some comments here, Terry. It says, "What do you do? How do you pee when you're in a tree stand on an all-day sit? In a bottle or out of the stand?"
Whip it out.
Whip it out.
We talked about this on an episode, and I don't know how long ago. Somebody else asked the same question. So,
Mark, when there was a time when I did everything possible in regards to scent control, and that included carrying a bottle to pee in. And one day I looked at that stinking bottle that I was carrying around, and I thought, this thing has got to stink. And I'm just going to try peeing out of my stand, and this might be a God thing, but the first time I peed out of a stand, I can tell you the tree I was in, it was on a morning hunt in November, and, I couldn't hold it anymore. I just peed out of the tree stand, and I'm telling you, it wasn't 10 minutes, and a 2-year-old 8-point buck walks along, and he stops, and he smells where I peed, and he started eating the leaves. So that convinced me that pee didn't hurt a thing. If you think about it, every predator out there is peeing in the woods. You got coyotes and bobcats and coons and possums and skunks and deer and coyotes, and just everything is out there peeing in the woods. And I don't know that a deer can tell human pee from other pee. Maybe he can. But I can tell you this, it doesn't seem to bother him, because the event that I described, me peeing out of stand for the first time, probably happened 25 years ago. And I've been peeing out of a tree ever since. And I think the stinking bottle you carry around probably does more harm than peeing out of a tree stand.
I'm less likely to pee all over myself trying to get it into a bottle than I am just letting it fly. So I'll just stick to letting it fly.
Well, I'll tell you a funny one. Gene Wenzel told me one time. He said that whenever he carries a bottle to pee in, he has to use the wide mouth kind.
Oh, jeez. Family.
Speaking of Gene Wenzel, hey, I got to talk to Gene. Gene called me the other day, and I bet I talked to him for an hour, and he's going to come on the podcast. And if you guys do not know who Gene Wenzel is, I'm telling you, the guy's a legend. When I was just a teenager, this guy is probably largely him and his twin brother Barry and Roger Rothar, the three of them are probably largely responsible for the modern day whitetail craze.
Agreed.
And just a legend, and he's agreed to come on the podcast, so I'm going to try to get him on here before Christmas time. Just a great guy, funny as can be too, so look forward to that.
All right. So,
all right. Next question.
We was
all over the map on that last one. So this one comes from Rob Vandervenen. He's from Ada, Michigan. Rob says, Don and Terry, love the podcast. Appreciate you guys being so open with your faith and being a great example for other fellow hunters. Question for you guys about having what I call a fall doe factory. I know many big-name whitetail guys talk about summer doe factories, which I don't believe in, but I have what I call a fall doe factory. I plant several acres of summer food, and it's loaded with deer all summer with about a 1-to-2 buck-to-doe ratio. The bucks are around all summer and then leave about when they shed velvet, and then the fields turn to 100% does. I have been very aggressively harvesting does, but it seems as fast as I shoot them, more move in. I have two questions. First, would you recommend to continue aggressive doe harvest to get ahead of this? Second, you got to turn the page here. Hold on. Second, suggest bringing the bucks. Well, I better go back. Second, how would you suggest bringing the bucks back for the fall? I'm assuming you'll touch on adding more cover, which is my number one priority in 2022, with more switchgrass and TSI work. Thank you, and God bless. Well, Rob, your question actually leaves me scratching my head a little bit, because you're saying here that you've got does all fall, and I just can't imagine a property that's got does in the fall, but the bucks are not there. And then you talk about being very aggressive harvesting does, and what I'm wondering is if maybe your hunting pressure harvesting your does is driving those bucks off of your farm during the day anyway, and that's why you're not seeing the bucks. But you also talk about, you shoot all these does, and it seems like more just keep coming in. And, when it comes to, trying to keep the buck-doe ratio in line and harvesting does, and if your neighbors aren't on the same program, you're pretty much wasting your time. And it very well could be that you're trying to do the work for the whole neighborhood as far as keeping the does in line, and in the process, you're pushing those bucks off. I've said it many times, but a mature buck especially, he wants security more than anything else, and he'll bed right with a bunch of does. I see it on my place all the time. I guarantee I got more does than anybody in the township, and I also got more bucks than anybody in the township. But I've also got the most secure property in the township. I don't go stomping through it. I hunt only on the edges, and I let the deer have the heart of it. And they figure it out, and they just pile in. And there's something wrong here. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I suspect that it's your doe harvest is putting enough pressure on your property that you're pushing the bucks off. But I still got to believe that those bucks are coming back at some point. Those does are getting bred. And I don't think the does are leaving to go find the bucks to get bred. Those bucks are coming around breeding those does at some point. At some point. Second question, how would you suggest bringing the bucks back for the fall? Well, what I just talked about, human intrusion. Cut down your human intrusion to zero. And forget about your does. If your neighbors aren't going to help you, you're wasting your time anyway. Forget about the does. Stay out of the heart of your property and give those bucks security, and I bet they come back.
I think he's saying he has bucks in bachelor groups before velvet, right? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
in the summer.
You're not going to keep all of them, but if he's got does there during the rut, and as long as they're not there, I think the key phrase you just said there is those does are going to get bred. So, and they don't leave to go find a buck. The bucks are finding them. So there's probably more to the story than what he's listing in the question, but based on what information we have, I think that's the best we can do.
All right.
So, okay. Good question, though.
Yep. Next question comes from Adam Rosendale from Forest, Ohio. Adam says, could you guys elaborate for me on mature buck tendencies for morning hunting? Hunting in the morning outside of November is a bad idea because bucks are either already in their bed before the sun comes up, or worse, you could spook them on your entry while they are still feeding and or on their way to bed. Is this correct? Yeah, it is correct. Most of the time outside of November, the bucks are in mature bucks. And you got to remember here, we're talking bucks at least 5 years old on this podcast. We're not talking about shooting 3-year-olds. You can get away with a whole lot on hunting 3-year-olds that you're not going to get away with on 5-year-olds. And most 5-year-olds outside of the rut, they're going to be in their bed when the sun comes up. And they're going to check that bed as they come in the dark, scent check it, downwind. You could go in at midnight and wait there for 6 hours for the sun to come up. When that buck shows up, if he comes in and checks it like a mature buck does in a heavily hunted area, he's going to smell you, and he's going to move off, and you're not even going to know, probably not even know that he was there, and he'll bed elsewhere. So that's the whole idea. The next part of the question says, what do bucks do differently in the morning in November that allows you to be less cautious in the morning and able to hunt mornings? Is it just that they come off that feeding pattern to chase doe and such, and it's your best odds to hunt mornings without spooking them? Can you explain a little more what kinds of things they are likely to be doing around dawn during November? Thanks for all you guys do. Well, what they're doing, without a doubt, Adam, is they're looking for does. They're not on a feeding pattern at all. They are searching for hot does, and for whatever reason, they I think a lot of it has to do with temperature. You know, it's cooler in the morning right there at dawn. It's about the coolest part of the day. Those bucks have their winter coat, and I'll say something that I just about bet you 99% of the listeners are going to relate to. When you see a buck on a November morning, that buck is usually covering territory. He's not just lollygagging around. You got to be on your toes. Sometimes you almost need to have your bow in your hand and the release on the string, because they come trotting by. They're covering some territory, and they're doing nothing but looking for does. And that's the big difference between November and the rest of the hunt.
I agree 100%. This was and people argue, and it's fine. Go do what you want. But you look at my journey, and when I started focusing on killing 5.5 years old bucks and later, a lot of mine were done, and a lot of my bucks are in September and October. And I quit hunting mornings because, and you might have, Adam, you might have a property that lays out perfect, that you can get in and out and be in the right magical spot that buck won't wind you when he scent checks where he's going back, and you can get in that field without a deer seeing you. If you have that, dude, congratulations. I don't. And I think for the most part, our listeners don't have that. Most of our listeners are normal people with properties that probably only have access from one, maybe two sides. You go in, you go out, and you blow deer. And we've made the analogy of Moneyball several times on this podcast. You do more harm or more damage for, who knows how many bucks that you blow or that scent check and find you than a buck you would have the opportunity of getting. And unfortunately, there's people in this industry that just promote this in such an aggressive approach so early, and you end up burning your whole farm out with such a small percentage chance of closing the deal before you even get to the peak of the rut. And I think that if people really understood that, they would be a whole lot more successful.
Yeah, we're promoting things that we have seen firsthand work. And when I promote morning hunting only in October, I just stated earlier in this podcast that I started hunting mornings yesterday, which was October 30th, and I did again this morning, which is the 31st. No, I was going to hunt, but I went with Corey to track his buck. But when I say October and November, it's not a fine line every year. November 1st isn't the magic day that you automatically, that's the day I'm going to start hunting mornings. It's around October 1st. If the temperatures this week were, and the past few days had been, say, 20 degrees above average for this time of year, I would not hunt a morning until probably about the 3rd or 4th of November. That's just a rough estimate. November 1st is a rough estimate of when I'm going to have my first morning hunt. And it's based 100% on weather. Weather trumps everything. We just talked about the moon. Weather trumps everything. And you just got to pay attention to it, and you got to plan your hunts accordingly. All right, on to the next one. Next one comes from Easton McNeil from Mansfield, Ohio. Easton says, Don, this topic is constantly weighing on my mind, and I want to get the thoughts from someone who has been around a bit longer than I have. More and more here lately, myself, along with some of my closest hunting buddies, feel that people who follow the rules and regulations are becoming the minority. There's always going to be rule breakers. However, the list of people that I could name who are shooting deer with guns during bow season and using other people's tags in order to make multiple bucks, take multiple bucks, seems to be growing weekly. Excuses range from it's how everyone does it around here to, well, other people aren't going to fill their tags, so I might as well, when it ultimately boils down to greed and lack of integrity. As someone who has a deeply rooted passion for not just hunting, but maybe even more so for the land and animals and sustainability of both, this issue is becoming increasingly hard to ignore. Should this be something that we just accept as being on trend with the general direction the whole world is heading, or is there a better way to tackle it? Thanks, and good luck the rest of the season. Well, Easton, I really appreciate this question because I think there's too many people in the hunting industry that dodge ethics questions. Anything that might offend someone. Well, just to be brutally honest, if you follow me very long at all, I don't care about pissing people off. And I just say what comes to mind. And you're absolutely right. This industry lacks for role models, and I don't have the answer. I wish I had the answer. I mentioned Gene Wenzel earlier, very ethical bow hunter, and I was fortunate that when I was young that he was kind of my idol, if you will. And he was a very ethical hunter. I think we got to set the example. My dad, for example, was he kind of set the stage too for me. What I remember, I remember my dad just flat out saying this one time, that whatever we're going to do right. And he didn't care if my interest was hunting or fishing or baseball or checkers. He was going to help me in whatever my interest was. And my mom was the same way. They would help me to any extent they possibly could, but they was not going to help me cheat, and they was not going to help me break the rules. And it starts with us. And, you know, we got to set the example for our kids and for our friends. And you don't know how you can affect somebody else. I guarantee you my dad had no idea that, you know, 40 years later, I'd be having a podcast and writing books and this and that, and speaking seminars. And if I would not have had a father, you know, with those kind of values, parents, I keep saying father, but my mom was just as big a part of it. If I wouldn't have had those kinds of parents, I'm living the dream today. My childhood dream, I'm actually living it. And I would not have been able to do that if I would have had parents that would have allowed me to break the rules as a kid. And it just means so much to me today. And I tell a story that, you know, back when I was in high school, here in Illinois, it was really tough to get a gun tag every year. They were very limited, and more people applied for them than was able to get them. And, you know, so we would apply every spring, and in the summer we'd find out if we got deer tags for that fall or not. And one day I was at school, and a friend of mine told me this, that him and his family, his dad, they were sending in applications for gun permits for deer hunting for everyone in the family. You know, the mother, the sisters, everybody, they sent in everybody's name, and then they was assured somebody was going to get tags and they could go hunting, and shoot, they may even have 2 tags in their pocket. And I'm talking back when deer were not that plentiful, and it was hard to get a tag. And I came home and told my dad, I said, I got a great idea, you know, but how we can all get deer tags and be sure we're going to get them. We'll apply in my mom's name, my brother's name, and our names, and surely somebody will get them. And my dad didn't think that was such a great idea at all. And he just about come uncorked at the supper table, and he probably doesn't remember this, but I remember it like it happened yesterday. And he told me right then and there we was going to do things right, or we wasn't going to do it at all. And that's how I wanted to do it. He was taking my shotgun away, and I wasn't going to be allowed to hunt at all. And at the time I thought, wow, what's the big deal? Well, today I see exactly what the big deal is. And, you know, I wish I had the answer how we could straighten these people out. I can tell you in the past that I've turned in game law violators, and you know what happens? I end up being the bad guy. That they may be well liked in the community, and it's just a deer, and is the attitude that a lot of people have. And well, it may be just a deer, but it's still wrong. And it's funny how people will overlook game violations. You know, even people that are church-going, you know, deacons in their church or whatever, go out and break game laws, and it's no big deal. It's all overlooked. But yet they'll want to hold somebody else accountable for some other minor, if you will, law violation. And society it's on a downward spiral. I wish I had the answer. But I just don't. You just got to set the good example for your kids. You need to only hunt with people that are ethical. And, you know, if you see blatant violations, I think you should turn them in. I don't think you should call the game warden every time you hear something secondhand. But if you witness something, for sure, you should report it. And I don't know. I guess that's about the best I can do. I'm hoping Terry has some better advice for you.
I really don't. I mean, my takeaway on it is young hunters are a product of the guidance of people in their lives. You talk about how you form these values of how you go about hunting based off your dad, even though he wasn't a hunter, but how you were going to obey the law, and then your mentors, Al Foster or the Wensels. the bottom line is if we don't stand up and report the people breaking the law and hold them accountable, to just say, well, everybody's doing it, guess what? The young kids and men that are around those people are going to think it's okay. And then it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So I get it that people don't want to be the bad guy. They don't want to cause the friction, but it's whether you want to make change or not. Sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy for Don and I to take the stand that we do on our religious beliefs or our political beliefs. We get the hate mail. We get the people that say, different things about us. Good grief. But, I think in the end that if you really want to make change doesn't come easy, and you got to be willing to do it. So I have the game warden's number in my phone. If I see you doing something, a phone call's going to be made. It's as simple as that. Yeah, and I just want to, again, tell you I appreciate the question, Easton, because, it's guys like you that can be the future of the hunting industry. And these guys that are breaking the law, they have no future in the hunting industry. It'll all catch up with them sooner or later. And maybe you have no desire to ever be part of the hunting industry, but still, your integrity, once it's shot, it's shot. You have a tough time rebuilding it. And it doesn't matter if it's game laws or what it is, if you're breaking the law. So, just do the right thing. Hang around people that do the right thing. When you have a chance, teach others, your kids or whoever, to do the right thing. Yep, that's all we can do.
Yep.
All right, so was that the last question for tonight?
That was the last one this evening.
All right, so let's circle back a little bit to hunting the first week in November. This is kind of what we work for all year long. There's watching social media. There's been some absolute hammers killed in the last 3 or 4 days. I think with the temperatures dropping in much of the Midwest, I'm excited as I've ever been excited about the rut this year. Still holding a bow tag in Kentucky and one in Illinois. I think it's just going to be phenomenal. I think that by next Sunday's podcast, we should have some really good information and good stories, good observations from the stand that we've seen this week, because I think both of us are pretty much going to be hunting all week this week, with the exception of Monday for me.
Right, and this is the week we always wait for. I can't remember the last year that we had such perfect weather. The one thing I don't like is that this week it looks like the winds here in central Illinois are going to be pretty much north and northwest,
right,
almost every day. And I like a little more variety. I'd like to see some east winds and some southerly winds in there. I'm sure we'll get at least the southerly winds before the end of November. But temperature-wise, I mean, it just doesn't get any better. We might have a cold front during the first week in November, but it's 2 days, the temperature drops 10 degrees and then it's back up. Well, we're talking a solid week of temperatures here in the 40s and low 50s as highs, and in the 30s at night. And it just doesn't get any better than that. This next week is just going to be fantastic. And then I'll also throw out there that next Sunday, which is when we will record the next podcast, but next Sunday is November 7th. The date that more booners are killed than any other date. So the next 10 days ought to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's and even though I'm coming to Illinois, there's still not a guarantee that we're going to be together next week. I mean, there's a possibility that I'm hunting a different area of Illinois and you're in Iowa, so we'll have to navigate that as we go. We'll be still prepared to do the podcast next week as planned regardless. But again, I don't know when I've been as fired up, ready to go. Of course, I haven't hunted a lot the last couple of weeks, so I got a little bit of an itch. I'll tell you that I left my cell phone at home tonight when I went and sat in the tree for 3.5 hours tonight. And all I can do is encourage everyone out there when they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and, just kind of stressed out and they want to go hunting, just leave your cell phone in the truck. Or don't take it out, shut it off and put it in your pocket if you need it for emergencies or whatever. Sometimes just disconnecting away from everything for a little bit is quite the blessing. I had a really good time in the stand tonight, and I only saw 3 does, just sitting there and watching versus playing on my phone. I really enjoyed it tonight.
I might have to try that.
I'll be honest, I had about 60 text messages and I don't know how many social media messages by the time I got out. So it was 3 hours I couldn't stay in contact with people, which was crazy. But, we live such a hustle and bustle life that it's not bad just to disconnect for a little while. Even if it does put you a little bit in the hole, I encourage you to do that. It wasn't intentional for me to leave my phone at home tonight, but I'm glad I did. I really had fun tonight.
Good deal.
All right. Well,
hopefully next week we got a big buck story to tell.
Yep, that's the plan. So we want to wish everybody luck for their rut vacations, or you called them rutcations, I think is what you called them this week. I've never heard that. Yeah. But I'm going to be keeping in touch with a bunch of guys. If you get a big buck down, make sure you tag or tag Don or I or on social media or send us a picture of it. Love to hear from you guys and wish you nothing but luck this week.
Yeah, and tune into the Rut Report on Facebook and Instagram every day. Every evening I'll post a new Rut Report, and also going to pick a winner for a giveaway. And also post some pictures every day. There'll either be a picture or video posted with that, so be sure to check it out.
You're such a people pleaser, Don. Doing it on both Instagram and Facebook now.
Well,
you should run for You should run for politics.
I can tell you somebody that probably doesn't think so.
All right. Later, everyone. Thanks for your support.
We want to thank our sponsors, BuyAFarm.com, Chevrolet, 360 Hunting Blinds, Lone Wolf Tree Stands, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, Vortex Optics, Real World Wildlife Products, and Matthews. Have a great week, everybody. Don't forget to tune in to the Rut Report.